You know that feeling when you just have no idea what's going on in the classroom or what the teacher is saying? And your world has turned into a nightmare? For me, it wasn't because I didn't speak English, like the experiences of many of my fellow Latinx peers. Quite the opposite. It came when I was in second grade, attending a Spanish Saturday school in New York City. This is a picture of me in fourth grade, but it's close enough. This anxiety from not understanding Spanish or the teacher in class manifested in actual physical symptoms, and my parents took me to a psychologist to seek help. He told my parents two things. One, that I was gifted, and two, to stop speaking Spanish to me because that was the source of my anxiety. And just like that, I entered a world where one language was good and another was bad. I was born in Queens, New York. My parents immigrated as teenagers from Colombia, and Spanish was the language of our home, of dinner conversations, of extended family, of music, and of my entire early childhood. My older sister even spoke to me in Spanish when I was a baby. My parents were bilingual in English and Spanish, so English was also equally present at home. I learned to read and write in English from very early on. I had never felt confident in my Spanish. I felt like I understood it, but I was ashamed to speak it. My parents would defend me whenever we saw other family members. Es que él habla inglés, a él no le gusta el español. This alleviated my anxiety of struggling with my Spanish, but it kept me from understanding my family, my culture, and myself. There were moments I remembered that I actually acknowledged my bilingual and my bicultural identity. I used to read the Berenstain Bears books in English with my grandmother while she read the same pages to me in Spanish. I once played a made-up game with my sister and my cousins where I would speak in English to them if I were wearing sneakers, and Spanish to them if I were wearing these special kind of chancletas called alpargatas. I actually didn't know what they were called until a few days ago. I realized that I actually had moments in my childhood where I celebrated my dual identity, but that wasn't enough. As soon as the psychologist condemned Spanish, my world turned English only. I hadn't just lost a language, I lost a part of my identity. My parents took me out of the Spanish school, and shortly after we ended up moving to Miami, Florida. There, I encountered two more language challenges: my Spanish for Spanish speakers class at my elementary school, and the most daunting of all, Caribbean Spanish. If you thought Spanish was hard enough, think again. I think we need a lot more time to learn Caribbean Spanish to understand Bad Bunny at the Super Bowl. I'm just kidding. I love Bad Bunny and I love Caribbean Spanish, even if I still have trouble understanding it. All that to say, being in Miami, taking a required Spanish class, and not understanding a word around me didn't motivate me to lean into my bilingual and bicultural identity. I realized later that my own rejection of my language and culture and the psychologist's well-intentions are not isolated incidents. This is systemic. Applied linguist Nelson Flores and linguistic anthropologist Jonathan Rosa call it racial linguistic ideologies, which is a way of saying that society doesn't just judge how we speak, it judges who is speaking. For example, when a white English-speaking student learns Spanish, people say, wow, that's impressive. But when a Latinx student speaks Spanish, people say, you need to focus on your English, right? Same language, different value because of race and power. That's the world I entered, a world where bilingualism is celebrated for some and punished for others. And this isn't new. Throughout US history, education systems have succeeded to erase home languages. Native children were punished in boarding schools for speaking their languages. My own mother, and possibly your own abuelas y abuelos, grandmothers, grandfathers, uncles, and aunts, were punished for not understanding English in class, right? And even today, some schools still tell kids English only, even in California, even in Southern California. All of this sends one clear message. To belong, you must leave your language behind. But here's the truth. Language is not just a set of words. It's a way of being in the world, a connection to family, culture, and memory. When we silence a language, we silence a history. Reclaiming my Spanish wasn't easy and still isn't. I think I'm past my awkward phase, but the road is a lifelong journey, and I'm here for it. My grandmother took me to Colombia for my first visit when I was 18 years old. It was my chance to experience my home language and culture on my own. After that, I grew more and more curious with more visits to extended family down there. Soon enough, I was able to defend myself a bit more with practice. It was since my first visit to Colombia that I stopped speaking English to my grandma. Since I was 18, I've been speaking to her only in Spanish. I grew interested in studying language and culture. I took up French in college, and I wanted to become a French teacher. I moved to Washington, D.C. after college to do just that. Instead, I found positions to teach Spanish in elementary school, one of those daunting things from my childhood. But that Spanish teaching position ended up climbing me out of that rabbit hole of my English-only world and into another one that is multilingual and multicultural. And when I did, I found a world where I could explore my bilingualism, one where I didn't have to choose between English and Spanish, between American and Colombian, here or there. I could be here, I could be both. I could be all of it. We all know that the research shows bilingualism strengthens the brain. It improves memory, creativity, and problem solving. So why are we ignoring the research when it comes to the bilingualism of Latinx children and bilingual children? Racial-linguistic ideologies. Bilingualism strengthens our souls. When we speak and learn our heritage language, that's resisting the system that has racial-linguistically marginalized us. Sociolinguists have suggested for decades that second-generation immigrant children lose their heritage languages even if they are surrounded by it where they live. They don't learn by osmosis. Imagine an education system where students aren't told to lose their languages, but they share their stories, where teachers see Spanish, Cantonese, Vietnamese, Arabic, not as obstacles, but as assets. That's what we call an asset-based perspective. Seeing second-generation immigrant students, or third generation, not just as English speakers, but recognizing their heritage languages as linguistic superpowers. I decided to go to grad school to answer the question, why did I reject Spanish? Why did I not have access to bilingual education? Especially since I came from places where bilingual education has a deep history. Well, I ended up pursuing a PhD and went down the rabbit hole, AKA my dissertation. At first, I came with my own biases, a world where English dominated and Spanish was still on the back burner. But once I connected theory to my own experience, once I was able to question the rules of that world, I found my why. I was then able to answer my questions. After my coursework, I went back to Miami to do fieldwork at a bilingual school that graciously allowed me to answer these questions. I realized that second-generation immigrant children in Miami are rewriting our collective history and claiming their bilingual identities. However, this is only done where children attend programs that incorporate their home language into all core subjects in the curriculum. Today, my Spanish is not perfect, but I learned that it doesn't have to be considered bilingual. But the important thing is that I reclaimed it. After my PhD program, I am now a professor of biliteracy and bilingual education, teaching university courses in Spanish, rewriting my own history. I'm proud that I now use both languages to teach, to connect, to dream. Because every time I speak Spanish, I'm saying, Spanish didn't make me anxious, Mr. Psychologist. Teachers simply ignored me. Spanish is not a barrier in my schooling educational systems. It is an asset. Spanish is a form of resistance. So I send this message to our teachers and schools. Let's be curious about our second-generation students' home languages. There's a lot of us out there. Let's be curious about our own bilingualism in teaching. Let's build classrooms that fit us. And to every bilingual student sitting here today, if someone ever made you feel that your home language didn't matter, remember, it's not your language that's the problem. It's the system that told you so. Keep speaking it, keep learning it, keep loving it, because your words carry history, heart, and hope. And if you wanted to be a teacher, you too can teach in your home language and in bilingual classrooms. We need you in the field. That's my pitch for the day. Thank you.